Hello, comic fans and collectors. Thanks for once again tuning in to Iconic Keys. Today we're going to take a look at a newer key from 2003. Now approaching 20 years since publication isn't necessarily new, I suppose, but comparably it's newer than most of the keys I've spotlighted thus far. The Walking Dead is a post-apocalyptic series created by Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore. It has received multiple literary awards and was of course adapted into the insanely popular AMC television series in 2010. The issue arrived at just the right time, at the beginning of the recent zombie craze in popular culture. But in truth, The Walking Dead may have been the primary catalyst for the recent rise in popularity that all things zombie have experienced as of late. Zombies in the Romero-esque shambling, undead, cannibalistic form had been around for decades prior to the book, of course. Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead, though, gave us something that we hadn't seen before in the zombie genre: the day after. Our story didn't end once a handful of survivors narrowly escaped death and discovered a helicopter, only to leave their fates ambiguous to us, the viewer. No, in The Walking Dead, the story continued into the next day, and the day after that, and so on. We were able to see our protagonist's torment, terror, and desperate struggle for survival. The story continued to provide us, the voyeurs, with many hours of gratuitously horrific entertainment. Interestingly, Kirkman and Moore's original pitch of the comic was as a follow-up to George Romero's seminal film, The Night of the Living Dead. That series would have been set completely in the 1960s, reflecting that era's culture and society after being confronted with the undead hordes. It was Jim Valentino, best known for his work on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy in the 90s, and founding member of Image Comics, who suggested a more modern setting for the book. This way the creators would fully own the work outright with no possibility of legal complications. The first issue of The Walking Dead opens with police officers Rick Grimes and his partner, Shane, in a standoff with escaped prisoner, Reggie. The two are pinned down behind their police cruiser, so Rick tells Shane to cover him while he attempts to flank Reggie. The escaped convict, however, manages to shoot Shane's gun out of his hand, before turning his gun on Rick and shooting him in the chest. Our story then immediately cuts to Rick, waking in a hospital bed. He tries to get up, but falls to the floor. He yells for a nurse, but receives no response of any kind. After regaining his bearings to some degree, he gets up on his own and manages to find his clothes in a nearby dresser drawer. After getting dressed, he begins to explore the hospital, finding it to be seemingly deserted. He uses the elevator to check a different floor, but is startled when the doors open and a corpse falls into the elevator. Terrified, Rick once again shouts for help, but still no one answers. Continuing his exploration, Rick finds the cafeteria at the end of the hall. The doors, however, have been blocked with a board. Curious, Rick decides to investigate the room. After opening the door, he is shocked to find the cafeteria full of shambling walkers, one of which moans before coming straight towards Rick. The others begin moving in his direction as well, but he is able to get away unscathed after tumbling down the stairs along with the lead zombie. He then finds himself in the parking garage. After securing the door behind him with his belt, he attempts to find some mode of transportation. Having no luck with any of the cars in the garage, he continues his journey outside the hospital and soon finds a bicycle at the side of the road. Rick is horrified to see a female zombie next to the bicycle. Although extremely decayed and desiccated, the girl still moans and writhes on the ground. He quickly snatches her bike and departs. Soon, though, overwhelmed by recent events, he falls to his knees and briefly cries before getting up and continuing his journey home. When he arrives at his house, he finds that it has been ransacked and deserted. Upon exiting and stumbling around the corner, he is hit over the head with a shovel by young Dwayne Jones, knocking Rick unconscious. Dwayne's father, Morgan Jones, quickly comes running up, admonishing the boy, telling his son that Rick is alive and not a zombie. Sometime later, Rick awakens in the home of his neighbors, where Morgan Jones and his son are now squatting. He is then invited to have dinner with Morgan and Dwayne. Rick is confused and begins to panic. Morgan is, however, able to calm him down. Morgan is then surprised to learn that Rick is completely oblivious to the events surrounding the recent apocalypse. Rick explains that he was shot, placed in a coma, and has no idea what has been going on. Morgan explains to Rick that nothing is known about the origins of the outbreak. However, the media was informing everyone to relocate to large cities in order to be protected. Morgan, however, decided to take his chances in a small town instead. Rick then mentions that his wife, Lori Grimes, had family in Atlanta, and perhaps that's where she has gone with their young son, Carl. After dinner, Rick Morgan and Dwayne go to the police station where Rick worked. Rick expresses his appreciation to Morgan for driving him to the station, and then takes him to the armory. Rick leaves Dwayne and Morgan to collect weapons, while he goes and changes into a police uniform. Rick fills a large tactical bag with long guns and ammo and heads out to procure a police cruiser. He also gives Morgan the keys to another police car. Morgan proceeds to thank Rick for everything as the group is interrupted by a zombie pushing up against a nearby chain-link fence. Rick prepares to shoot the zombie, but Morgan stops him. Morgan tells Rick that the zombie is no threat to them behind the fence, and Rick may well need that bullet later. The Joneses intend to stay in the small town, so Rick and Morgan wish each other well. Rick then begins his journey to Atlanta, but before leaving town, he stops near the hospital. He then walks over to the zombie girl he found near the bicycle earlier, shooting her in the head. The story that began in issue 1 would continue for another 192 issues, ending abruptly with issue 193. Robert Kirkman made no announcement that this would be the end, as he wanted the readers to be shocked and surprised at the revelation. Shock and surprise being the hallmarks of the book's 16-year run. The series gave us many memorable moments and unique characters that the creators were willing to excise from the narrative at the drop of a hat, often to the great dismay of fans. Issue 1 of The Walking Dead reportedly had a print run of less than 7,300 copies. That's very low for something that became so popular. The issue, however, has been reprinted as a single copy many, many different times outside of trade paperbacks and compendiums, so you can pick up one of those if you're interested in reading a facsimile. If you must have a first printing, though, at a 9.8 grade, it could set you back $1,500 to $2,000 at the time of this video. You could even go all out and try to pick up one of the 24 known 9.9s out there. The issue still has plenty of room to grow in value, despite the series' abrupt end recently. Kirkman and Moore's world is likely not dead yet. I wouldn't be surprised to see future stories told ancillary to the comic's core narrative as well. Zombies continue to be a strong metaphor in the current zeitgeist, and the adapted television show along with its spin-offs are also still very popular. If you can find a first printing at the right price, it would certainly make for a nice, modern addition to any comic collection. Until next time, thanks for watching, and take care.